Well, hey, everyone, thanks for tuning in. I'm Charlie with Advent Tech. I just realized I could do this right before the call. I do have an interactive flat panel behind me, and I'm joined by Dave Hill, who is a CEO and owner of a social emotional resources company or emotional wellness resources company. I think sometimes we say it differently depending on who we're talking to, because what it's all about is kids having emotional wellness and good social skills and relationships. But it's a hot topic in education, right? And we want to make sure that we help folks understand what it is that you do. And then Dave, get a little bit of an introduction to you. But Dave's also a friend. So Dave and I, we met through our wives. Those introductions you get sometimes where your wife comes home and says, I met someone and I think you should talk to the husband, and you're like, I don't want to do that. I definitely don't want to talk to the husband. Well, he's in your world. He works in education. And it ended up being a great introduction and in many ways inspired me to launch Advent Tech, which is a part of my backstory. But Dave, tell us a little bit about yourself and maybe a little bit about HeartSmartTV.
Well, thanks, Charlie. It's so good to be with you. And I never knew that confession that you didn't actually want to talk to me at first. That was a new piece of information for me. So I'm glad we're doing this, so I can now give you a hard time about that. But, no, it was awesome. Our wives got to get us connected, and Charlie, you've been such a great support to me. I started HeartSmart in the UK. You might notice I have a different accent. This actually might interest you to know that in England we did invent the language, and so this is what it's supposed to sound like. Just joking. But I created the company over in the UK and came to the US. And Charlie, you've been like an instrumental support and encouragement to me as we've kind of expanded across the US. So forever grateful and just glad to be on this call with you.
Yeah. And when I met you, Dave, it was funny because I was coming off of this 15-year run in educational technology sales, and you were introducing and had already for a few years introduced HeartSmart as a resource to American schools, but you were kind of saying, boy, there's a lot of things that are pretty different about selling in America versus selling in the UK, and looking for some sales support. So yeah, we just sort of worked together, and it was really fun, right? Really fun to figure out, how do we find reseller partners or just go direct to market? What are good marketing resources? Boy, what are some things we need to create over here that we didn't have over the UK? Pacing guides and things that teachers are pretty wild about here, in the US, and changing some of the language too, right? Because, although you think that you invented the language, maybe you did, we perfected it. So there's American English and some things had to change. So the literature, is all up to date with English that works in both countries, which is pretty impressive.
Right.
There's no funny British euphemisms. Fine spelling.
Yeah, I'm with you on the way you spell. You generally don't. We just chuck a few extra consonants and vowels in there for no real reason, and you guys have streamlined it. So yeah, it was there was different things in the UK. There's this kind of mandated guidelines from the government as to teaching relationship education, and so we check every box with this resource in the UK. But that really wasn't the way that schools wanted to approach it here in the US. They wanted something easy, quick to use, and kind of more of a soft touch, and looking around the area of how do we bring climate health, school climate, or cultural health to school. And so we had a lot of videos back in the UK, but really coming here, one of the main things we did is we developed a whole lot more videos. It is entirely video based, but there are also some lessons, because we do think that teacher voice is important. So there's some lessons that teachers can teach too. But that was one large part of what we did when we came to the US, is just making a lot more videos, and so it just becomes quite simple. So a teacher can go, I think I should be teaching this thing that I do care about. I just haven't got around to it, because I was prepping for math and I was prepping for literacy. And so it's as simple as you just find your grade, you press play on a video, and then there's an activation. And as a teacher, you're just completely set up to be able to go, I can teach this lesson now. You can kind of prep it while the video is playing. And so you get to see me and my favorite friend other than you, Charlie, Boris the robot, on video. And so that's kind of how it works.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and I think, what I fell in love with right away, you sort of gave me access. I've got a bunch of kids in school now, elementary age kids, and I fell in love with how easy it was. We did, I think, a word cloud exercise with customers early on, and it was easy and fun that came up as the universal, words. And like, imagine ever implementing any new sort of curriculum or resource at a school, and the words that come up are not usually easy and fun. But because, like you said, it's a student-facing video curriculum with a teacher activation that's explained in the video, so the kids and the teacher know what they're doing as soon as the video's over. Or sometimes you pause in the middle of the video and then Boris and Dave do a wrap up. And, again, it's got some elements that I think are even more exciting than some of the other stuff that's out there, right? It really plays like a TV show. And I've heard it likened to a sort of a Mr. Rogers many, many times, right? If Mr. Rogers had a terrible British accent and a robot. But it's really fun and engaging with the kids. And then maybe talk for a minute about how the Boris character and the Boris story seems to like grab these kids, because it grabs these kids.
Yeah, they'll always remember Boris's name. Perhaps not mine, but he's definitely the key character. Boris is a robot. He's made from trash. By the way, we would say rubbish. And I just trash just rolled off the tongue then. So I really have got
back down. Yeah.
But he's made from trash. He sometimes listens to the scrap man's voice. He says, "Boris, you've been made from trash. Everything about you was once thrown away. You should just be thrown away." And so that feels like a true narrative, but it's not true. And so we take Boris on this journey where he's realizing, he's a recycled robot. He's actually, although yes, he's been made from trash, he's incredibly important. My life's better because of him. The kids that he lives with, Josh and Amber's life's better because of him. And so he actually has this other story, which is the real true story, which is you're an incredibly important robot, and you make a lot of people's lives better. And so you're not trash. You shouldn't be thrown away. In fact, you're incredibly valuable. And so that is very similar to the inner dialogue of what is going on in many children and many adults' hearts. Are we kind to ourselves? Do we show compassion to ourselves? Which voice are we listening to? I think often we can think that when we build character education or relationship skills, we can think it's how do we train the frontal lobe? But really, it's more the story that we live in, the story that we tell ourselves, the identity that we have. That's really what we make our choices from. And so story is one of the most powerful cultural tools. And so we deliberately created a story around this character, Boris the robot. And so all the videos feature him, and children just love him. We don't usually now take him into schools. We used to way back when we were creating him, and but now it's mainly just film based. But we did just last week, I don't know if you know that, I went on a little road trip, and we took Boris into a couple of schools, and kids would be filing up to leave, and they would so often just be one or two kids that just break rank, run over, give Boris a hug and just say, "You're incredibly valuable, Boris. I love you." They wanted to give him stickers. They wanted to have photos. They wanted to touch him. They wanted to ask him questions. It's the most beautiful thing.
Wow. Yeah, I went with you to a couple presentations when we were first kind of trying to figure out, like, how do we represent to American schools what it is that we offer. And there was a kid who you'd done a presentation with years ago, early adopter American customers, right? And a dual immersion, 2-language charter school, right? And so there's a kid who had aged out of, maybe they were in 4th grade and now they were in 7th grade or something, but they just kind of popped their head into the gymnasium when we were there and came in and said, "Boy, Boris was my best friend back in the day."
That.
And boy, that struck me so incredibly because, it's a robot. And of course, you've probably gone and done an in-person presentation, but the way the student he had gotten to know Boris was through the videos and hearing the story. So just something connected there with the students so powerfully that they felt like Boris was their best friend in these early years.
Wow.
That left a mark on me. I was like, maybe I'll mention this because when I first launched Advent Tech, I really wanted to almost exclusively just bring social and emotional and wellness resources to schools. And there was a fair number of them. HeartSmart was definitely one of them, because I just fell in love with this idea of these kids who desperately need help with skill building and even value building and all these things that, we care about, we learn about, but it's so hard to do, to make time for in an academic setting when it's about test scores and achievement. And even a lot of school administrators and teachers are just trying to get the kids to the baseline, and emotional wellness seems like a kind of above and beyond. But you have made it so easy that it doesn't have to be so hard to pull off in the classroom. It doesn't have to be a counselor coming in once a week or once a month, and then they leave the school, and then there's no emotional wellness focus for a year until they get another school counselor, right? It really is just a teacher and student video and activity you can do every single week or multiple times a week.
Right. So I think that's really important. I think you really want to build a healthy school culture, which means that you really want to empower teachers. You don't want school counselors do an amazing job, and sure, their voice needs to be in the mix. But I think that's not really the way you build a school culture, a healthy school culture. You need the teacher that's there with the students day in, day out, being the person that is actually going, yeah, actually, here are the values that we have around here, that you're incredibly important and valuable as they're kind of listening to Boris's story. We want to really empower the teachers to be the heroes in the classroom and in the kids' stories.
It's funny because a lot of schools have a lot of technology and, even like I said, these interactive flat panels, we sell a lot of these, deliver them to schools. For me, it's a really fun idea to think how you can now deliver these lessons through this technology, right? Now the kids could watch the lessons on their Chromebooks. And if you got a projector, a lot of schools still have projectors, put it on the projector. But again, it's super easy for a teacher to just cast his or her laptop to the device or just pull up HeartSmartTV because it's just all web-based, right? So they get a teacher login and then they can start coasting through the lessons. There's extra lessons. There's the story book read online. So again, I don't think we'll take time just in this interview to go through because it's not a HeartSmart pitch. It's a little bit more of just what is it, what's behind it, our connection, and then there is a kind of an exciting announcement for us, for Advent Tech customers that's a part of this. And I don't want to fast forward to that too quickly, but if somebody's held on this long, I say they deserve a little takeaway. So with Advent Tech in partnership with HeartSmart, we can't offer this forever. We're going to offer it for a limited amount of time. Might be 30 days, might be 60 days. We'll see. But we're going to equip schools that have spent at least $10,000 and above, which is easy to get that number when you start buying technology. Every $10,000 you spent with us will equip one of your sites with a HeartSmart license, right? So as many teachers and students as you have on that site. And we have schools that have spent, hundreds of thousands with us. So or districts, I should say. So they'll probably cover the whole district, which is great. And we'll let you know kind of how long we can run it because HeartSmart's been incredibly generous. Dave and I had many conversations the last couple of years when we were building the American market about how do we just make this free? How do we get this in the hands of as many people as possible? There are just realistic costs when it comes to hosting, creating resources, updating resources. We have an administrative staff that supports teachers when they need help. And I mean, even just, 10 times a day, somebody needs a password reset or something, right? So, in terms of supporting folks, there is a cost associated. So Advent Tech is going to absorb that cost. HeartSmart has given us a great deal in terms of just giving folks access for 1 year, right? Probably just till the end of the school year. And if you're looking for this kind of resource and you're an Advent Tech customer, you're already in, right? So we'll get you some information. And if you're going to buy a little more technology, and let's get you to that number to where we can afford to pay for the site license from HeartSmart, which they have super discounted. I'm not, I want to make sure this is clear. We're not charging you more so that we can buy this from them. It's just part of a charitable contribution. Dave, thank you for letting us do that. Maybe now that I've kind of put that on the table, take an extra minute here to just sort of talk about like what are the HeartSmart high five values, because I think this is one of the things I also fell in love with is there's a lot of resources that teach kids interaction skills and communication skills and a lot of really important things, but there's also some really great values that anytime anybody hears these, teachers, administrators, parents even, they always say, yeah, teach my kids that, make sure they learn those things. So what are the HeartSmart high fives that are going to be taught to these kids?
Well, just to say, super excited to partner with you, Charlie. I think it's amazing the work that schools do in raising aspirations for children, and technology plays a vital part of that. It's such an essential tool for helping children kind of begin to explore new territories and horizons they hadn't seen before. And so it does feel like a brilliant partnership where we're kind of bringing the emotional health in to that bit too. But yeah, the HeartSmart high five, the 5 key values. Culture is based on values. This is what we do around here. And the 5 values all kind of align with love. And so the first one is don't forget to let love in. It's to be kind and compassionate to yourself. Sometimes the person that we're cruelest to is ourselves. And so how do we, just like Boris, learn to receive a compassionate and a kind internal dialogue that we're not trash, that we're actually incredibly important. But we're not necessarily the only person in the room. There are other people too. And so how do we help children to know that too much selfie isn't healthy? That's value number 2. And so we want children to grow up and to grow in empathy, to grow in kindness, and to learn to be good listeners and good contributors to society. So too much selfie isn't healthy. We have and here's the website right in front of me.
And I'm sorry, no, I totally just pulled this out of nowhere, and I just again, even though I sell technology, sometimes I forget I can do cool things like screen share. So yeah, it just dawned on me that I would love to actually show people a little bit of what the website looks like, and here's the value from here.
Well, there's the values right there. Don't hold on to what's wrong. It's about forgiveness, forgiving yourself, not holding on to regret. Every healthy choice is a choice in the future, and you can't do that if you're holding on to yesterday. So how do we move past that? Don't hold on to what's wrong. Fake is a mistake. That truth and love, they go together. We don't have to pretend to be something that we're not. And actually, we want children to grow up and have integrity and to have the courage to tell the truth. Fake is a mistake. And the last one, no way through isn't true. Just that idea that actually resilience, growth mindset, it all starts with this hopeful heart posture of believing that there is a way through no matter what. And so that's the Heart Smart High Five. It's the language which shapes the culture. And so you have these moments throughout a child's day, throughout a school day, where a child might be battling with one of these. Is it worth pressing on? You haven't necessarily got that math skill yet, and so no way through isn't true. It's just giving them the power of yet. So the idea is that these become little pieces of language that they can weave into our day. And so there's the website. You can see it's pre-K through to 5th grade, but yeah, it's pretty intuitive. You just find your grade level. Right. Just click on your grade level, and then I don't know if we'll do this live. We'll just see. This is great. This is me having the power of a child.
Oh well, and I'm not logged in. I should have logged into the website so we could.
Oh, don't worry.
But don't worry. Again, I think I just wanted to show folks. Again, it's super easy to navigate website. There's these lesson plans. Everything is in there. If you wanted printed resources, you can do printed resources. We do organize
functions too, which is helpful.
Yeah, you can search for specific topics, and again, every time we review these values with administrators, teachers, or even parents, they so often say, wow, if you could teach my kids all these things, how to have a kind inner dialogue, how to have empathy for others and to be considerate of others. This one is the favorite playground phrase, is what one principal I heard her say, we have to say this every day on the playground. Don't hold on to what's wrong, especially when little boys get red bunches. And then authenticity, fake is a mistake, right? You need to be your authentic self. You need to speak the truth. Mm-hmm. And then resilience, hopefulness, no way through isn't true. So it's, these are powerful principles. If my kids just learn these things and they, go on into adulthood, I think they'll be okay. I mean, these things are hard to learn for us as adults. Right. So I've been really encouraged watching some of these videos and stuff. And, when Boris runs into a robot who doesn't look like him, and he needs to process how does he feel about a robot who doesn't look like him, or like you said, just that inner dialogue, the voice of the scrap man saying these negative things, and the voice of the kids who made him saying, no, you're great, you're made for a purpose. So I love it. I love HeartSmart. I could spend way too much time on this, but I just thought I'd kind of share the website, show folks. Again, it's elementary aged kids, right? So for some of our customers that obviously have high school kids, it's not a resource there. I do have a 7th grader and an 8th grader, and they still like these videos. But again, maybe that's just my kids. So really, the content goes up to 5th grade, and that's what it's designed for. So lots of other great resources, and we're even happy to refer you to or help you find other great resources for your older grade kids, right? But HeartSmart's great, covers pre-K through 5th grade. And so, yeah, Dave, having seen you done this presentation many, many times, I'm curious, if there's any particular story that you think kind of just nails the HeartSmart experience for you, like any, there's one that I always remember, that kid saying Boris was my best friend. But for you, where have you seen the impact happen? What's the story you remember that comes to mind?
Wow, thanks for asking that. I think there's nothing. I mean, there's so many, and I think it never gets old, was what I was going to say. It was so fun taking, Boris he's pretty heavy to cart about, but when we make the effort to, bring a little sound system and bring him in front of some school kids, and then And then you get to see up front what's happening usually in the classrooms, which you don't get to see. Just the way that children respond. It's the most beautiful thing. I think I am in a school just yesterday, and I was just talking about how I was remembering I had this thing I used to do as a kid. I used to play with these little toys, and I had this little kind of rug which had like these tracks, and so I get on my cars and do this with the tracks. But I always kind of started this race, and there was this old beaten up Volkswagen which only had 2 wheels rather than 4 that was never kind of there in time for the beginning of the race, and so then the cars would zoom off. The car is like, oh no, I've not started the race yet. I'm going to be way behind, and I had some story as to why it was late.
Yeah,
and so quickly it would come on the track, and then he'd run around, and just you guessed it, just before the very end, that car would just win, and it would win the race. Yeah. And I was just thinking about that. I shared that story yesterday, and I don't think I've ever shared that story before. It's just something I remember.
I've never heard that one.
Yeah, and I was thinking that's really what it means to be a teacher, that we believe in the child that maybe no one else would believe in, that we believe that, the beaten up Volkswagen that might think it's forgotten about. Actually, no, you're not forgotten. You're incredibly important, and I see a winner in you. And so that's really the role of teachers. And I think teachers are the heroes today to be ones who bring such courage to those who need courage, to put courage in, to end courage, and to believe in the child before they believe in themselves. And so I think it's just such a great gift to be able to get alongside kids and teachers and point them in the right direction and bring support where we can. But really our heart is just to serve teachers and help make them feel like a genius in the incredibly hard work that they do. So,
yeah. Well, I know, one of my best friends, and it's not, I know yours is Boris, but one of my best friends, he's been a teacher for about 10 years, and he just became a vice principal of a local elementary school. And he's a big guy, tattoos, works out, beard, and like he's just this, kids love to kind of come up and try to hang on him all the time, and he's a really great teacher. And I asked him years ago, like, why did you become a teacher? I'm so curious. And he says, well, you've heard parts of my backstory, broken home, this, that, bounced around parents, grandparents, lived in a pretty rural community. Well, it was a teacher that connected me to, my own value and my own ability to live a different life than I'd been introduced to. And this is one of those stories. This is your Volkswagen story, someone who really started behind, and then through public education, found the right couple teachers that believed in this kid, encouraged this kid. I'm sure he was the hard kid. I mean, I just think these are the stories that we fall in love with. This is why we, teachers come back to it. I think this is for me why I've always come back to the educational market, even though I'm slinging technology most of the time. And I think it's why HeartSmart and other great resources, right? There's lots of schools are trying lots of things to help kids, but why I keep coming back to HeartSmart, because I believe in those stories. I believe in those kids. And my wife even came from pretty difficult home circumstances growing up. And, she's incredible. You've met her. She's great. She's very hearty. And you would never know she came from a very difficult home and background and childhood. So a lot of that was teachers also investing in her. So she almost became a teacher. And then we decided just to have an army of children. Yeah, between having them and adopting them, we're up to 6 kids, which is pretty crazy. But she does have her own school. Exactly. So, well, Dave, this is great. Thank you so much for taking the time and letting folks know a little bit about you and HeartSmart. I'm so excited to announce this promotion that we're doing for our customers. And yeah, I hope that we just get to, introduce lots and lots of kids to HeartSmart. I know you've got conferences you're coming up and speaking at. So when our customers ask us for more information, we'll point them to HeartSmart. We'll point you to some of the conferences you're going to. I know you're speaking in Houston just next month. You're the keynote guy, which is really fun.
Yeah.
So
I don't even Boris. I didn't ask Boris. They asked.
They probably wanted to ask Boris. Probably assuming you're going to bring Boris. No.
Oh man.
Yeah. Well, thanks again so much, Dave, and we'll sign off here. And thank you, everyone who watched all the way through. And I hope it was worth it. And we'll see you next time.
Thanks so much.